live.
And here we are. We are live.
Well,
Not really live.
not really live. We're recording with each other live, but
yeah, it's not a live show. We're only doing
not
one
yet.
of those this season.
Yeah.
Not yet. By
Well,
the time anyone hears this, it'll be 3 weeks ago.
I always get mixed up on that. Yes, we
I know.
already did our live show.
You're not
Yes.
really an actor.
I live in
You're
the
not good at
present
that.
too much.
Yeah, you're very much in the now.
Yes.
What's going on in the present now? Let's see. Your girl just got back.
She did. Laura got back Saturday night. It was good. She's glad to be back. She had to drive through pretty much rain the entire way back because she came from Missouri. Yeah, and when you have a storm that's moving west to east and you're going west to east, there's no way out of it. So that was a bit rough, but she made it back safely, so that's good. Had a good day yesterday, just hanging out, and she's back at work, sight and sound today. So, but yeah, glad to have her back. That's for sure.
Don't quit.
Yeah, she goes right back at it.
Yay.
Yeah.
So what show are you guys doing this year?
We are still doing Esther because of how Esther was shortened last year with COVID. So we're doing that through December. And then next year we will be doing David. That's our new original one that we'll be doing.
Ooh.
So look forward to that.
Are they already gotten that all worked up and stuff? Or
yeah, I mean they're still working on the costumes and stuff.
That we're gonna do David.
No, they already have most of the sets built at this point and working. They just have them in the shops. Yeah, they start on shows 3 years in advance. So by this point, most of David's already done. As far as building wise, structure wise, still a lot to do is logistics and costuming and stuff like that. But that'll all be worked out, rehearsals and stuff next year. So yeah. Anything new with you? Besides got over COVID, that's good. You sound even better today than what you did last week. So.
Yeah, yesterday I felt so good. I mean, I still feel good today, but it was just with the way I'd felt not even a week beforehand, I did not believe I'd be this much better by now. So yeah, it's really good to be over it.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to share, they talk about losing your sense of smell and taste.
Yes.
And, my wife and I did do that. We lost it. But what they don't tell you is that you don't lose I just can't taste anything. It's you only lose certain parts of your taste. So literally certain things just tasted horrible and other things were fine. So toothpaste ends up just tasting like baking soda for us. So it was it was awful. Brushing your teeth, it just felt awful. And then we did a movie night with my kids and we were eating the candy and it just wasn't good. We were having Mike and Ike's and they just tasted terrible. So it was okay, well, you guys can eat the candy because this is gross. I don't want to eat it. But anything else that was salty or savory was just fine. But I'm not even sure if I was tasting it at this point. We would have eggs for breakfast and it's okay, I don't even know if I tasted that. But anything that was sweet was just terrible to drink or terrible to eat. It was just awful. Yeah, so it's just this weird thing where Go ahead.
I have a cousin who had it last November, I want to say, and she still has not gotten all her taste and smell back.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it can last a long time in some people.
Yeah, it is so bizarre how much it varies. I'm just not used to. And I mean, I guess other sicknesses are like that, but it just doesn't feel like most sicknesses are like that. And I guess maybe it's because it's such a new thing that they're still trying to figure out everything that actually belongs to it. Because if you figure the chances are when you get sick with something, you're not just getting sick with just COVID. You may have other symptoms from another illness, so they include everything in the initial reports of it because they don't know what is just COVID and what is just, fat Americans having so many other issues with themselves. So they count everything. Whereas, like, flu's been around for 100 years, so we're able to say, oh, well, when you get the flu, boom, 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 this is what happens to you. Oh, when you experience this form of cancer, boom, 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 this is usually what happens. With there always being those other extra side effects of, oh, well, like 5% of people deal with this and 1% of people deal with this problem, you know? Whereas since COVID is
Yeah.
still, what, a year and a half old at this point, it's,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, well, we know about the taste and smell thing. That's pretty common. And we know about the feeling weak thing, but it seems like there's so many other issues that could go along with it that we may not have all the symptoms completely pinned down.
Right. Yeah, I'm just glad so far I've been able to avoid it. Hopefully, that continues. Does not sound like fun at all.
It's
Sounds
not. It's
complete
not fun.
misery.
But yeah, I'm glad
Yeah.
we're over it, and hope I don't have to talk about it again.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been trying to do that since
Oh, I'm sure.
season 1.
Yes, and that has not worked out very well.
Not at all. Oi.
So,
So let's see. What else is going on in the world? Dude, the Oscars? Were the Oscars last night?
they were last night for the first time. My brother would text me. He's like, Have you watched it?" I'm like, "I literally did not even know they were happening," which is
I
so
didn't
out of the
either.
norm for me because normally I make a bracket. I put out all my predictions, and I'm all set there, ready to watch the whole 3-hour ceremony live, and I didn't
Right?
watch any of it last night.
I
I was
got I saw an article this morning talking about Oscars at an all-time low
Yeah.
viewership, and do they even matter anymore? Does anybody even care? And those were all the articles I was seeing, and I'm literally
Mhm.
like, wait, when did the Oscars happen?
Yeah. Yeah, usually I'm on top of that, but like with last year with so few films coming out in theaters, I just didn't see as many films. So all these movies, I'm like, I haven't seen any of these movies, and I'm much less invested in the Oscars if I have seen very, very few of the movies.
Yeah.
And so my brother said, "Well, do you know what won Best Picture?" And I just threw out a name of a popular indie movie that I knew, Nomadland. And sure enough, Nomadland won Best Picture.
Hmm.
So like, yeah, I just had very little interest this year because I saw so few last year, and it just seemed like it was a very down year. And so I did not watch them. I don't even know who hosted them.
It's also so late in the year for them. Usually they happen in like
February,
February,
yes,
early
yeah,
March, late February, early March, at like the latest. And so we are at the end of April, and apparently the Oscars happened, and
yep,
no one cared.
no,
I just wonder if that's just
I,
telling of the future of cinema.
mm-hmm.
I don't know, just because, because going to the theater was already dying, and then
Yes,
COVID
oh
has
yeah,
pretty much killed it. Like, it's never going to be the same.
no,
People are
you're
going to
always,
keep watching HBO Max at home. They're going to keep watching,
yeah,
same day release. Disney's releasing finally Black Widow at home,
yeah,
Cruella, two movies that they said, oh no, those movies will never be released at home. They're getting released at the home with the premium pricing, extra
mm-hmm.
pricing for it. And
Yeah.
I mean,
They
why are
said we're
people going to
just
go
testing. We're
back?
just testing this out.
They're just
Yeah,
testing it out, but it's a move
there's,
that people have been talking about for a decade that I feel is
mhm,
needed, and some people are just fighting it for no reason. To me, it's the future of
yeah,
cinema. It's literally like it's similar to when they started doing talking in films, or when they started doing large format films, or when they started doing digital. The people who oppose those moves disappeared from filmmaking. So if you're going to oppose
mm-hmm,
people watching cinema at home, then you're part of the past, because
mm-hmm,
you want to talk about the experience and everything. The average American has surround sound with a large screen TV at home now. You know,
mm-hmm.
at the bare, like the smallest TV you can find in the store is practically 48 inches now.
Yeah,
Like
40. I was gonna say 40 or 50 inches,
my
probably.
father in law wanted to
Yeah.
find a a 19-inch screen TV. That's what he wanted to find. That's what he wanted because he just likes a small TV. The smallest I think we found was 32. Like we found the smallest TV
Yeah.
we could get him was 32 inches. And that's bigger than the first TV I ever bought. The first TV I ever bought was 20-inch flat screen, which was a big deal back then because, oh, it's flat screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now you go out on not even a Black Friday sale. You go to Walmart and you can get a 70-inch TV for $400 some dollars. You can get even larger than that,
Mm.
for $1,000. So, like, people can
Yeah.
have the quote unquote theater experience at home where it's just easier. You pay $30 for a movie and you can have food and snacks at home with your kids. Whereas, like, for me, I would have to find someone to babysit 3 psycho children, which I don't really want to put that on anybody. And then
Yeah.
I would need to, so that's gonna, it's like, say I pay someone for that, that's gonna run you at least $10 an hour. So $40 right there, minimum. And then we go to the movie, that's gonna be $15 each ticket. So you're talking $30 right there. Get just a few snacks, you're probably talking another $20 right there. So before the night is, so before we even sit down in our seats, we've spent over $100, to see the movie. I guess it's actually like 90,
Yeah.
40, 30, 90. Yeah, we're spending $90 to $100 just to go see the movie. Whereas if I can rent,
Mm-hmm.
Raya the Last Dragon for $30 and then have a night at home with my kids, go out, buy a bunch of movie box theater candy for $1 a piece. We have an in-home movie night for less
Yeah.
than 40, less than half the price. So to me, it was always a smart option for the families. And for a date night, it would just be easier. Put the kids in bed, pop something on that's brand new. Like, I don't see
Right.
why it's so difficult for people to realize, hey, people don't necessarily want to go to these giant buildings and pay so much that I mean, like they can literally pay the same amount
Yeah.
for the tickets. It's
Yeah.
it's like $30 to watch the movie at home, $30 to see it in the theater. You guys still get the same amount of money, probably more actually. But yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
so
me, like I'm someone who's a big proponent of movie theaters because again, it all boils down to experience. I know we talked about this before on other episodes, but like it all boils down to the experience. Where like in a movie theater, you have much less distractions. You're not, if you're at least if you're a polite movie theater goer, you're not taking out your phone and texting the entire movie, or you're not taking calls. You're locked into the movie, and you just can't do that at home. So that's why I love movie
yeah.
theaters so much. Is that you're basically you're in your own world for just 2 3 hours. Like all of the distractions are aside, and you can just focus on a movie, and you can't
Hmm.
do that anywhere else. So I'm still someone who like it still just disheartens me to see theater or to see production companies release these big budget movies on in your home the same day as theaters, because like you were saying, like who's gonna, if they're released in your home, who's seriously gonna, besides people like maybe like me, who's seriously gonna go
Hmm.
out and pay a whole lot more money to see this movie when you can just with your subscription see it on HBO Max or Netflix or whatever. I know
Yeah.
Disney Plus does the $30 uh, kind of pre-sale that they do for the first couple of weeks. They did that with Milan, where you can pay $30. It's not included in your subscription. You have to pay $30 to actually
Hmm.
watch it. And some TMs would even do that. I wouldn't do that. I would just wait a couple weeks to just watch it for free with my subscription. But anyway, but yeah, so that's just like that. That's unfortunately like that. I mean, that's just the way it's gonna go. That's the way it's gonna be. Like, there's no really going back at this point. I feel like it was like we were saying, it's already was heading in that direction, and COVID just completely ushered it in. Like,
Solidly put it there. Yeah.
yeah, there's just no going back to that. I will still go out of my way to see like movies that were meant for the big screen, like any Christopher Nolan movie. I will be in the theater for that. I will be seeing that in IMAX. any heavy visual effect movie, like the event movie, basically that's supposed to be seen on the big screen, I will still go out of my way to see that. But yeah, any
Fast and
movie,
Furious 9.
Fast and Furious 9, like movies that are these high octane action driven movies, I will still go to the theater to see those. At least ones that I'm like interested in. But
Did you see the preview for that movie?
yes,
Have you seen the trailer? Oh my god.
they
They're
are
going into outer
they're
space.
basically going into
Like,
outer space. Not the whole way. They're going to
I,
the stratosphere. You know.
I want to see the cars that they drive become Transformers. That's what I want to see. I want to see the Fast and Furious Transformers crossover.
Crossover. I would not be surprised one bit if they do that. I would at this point, nothing surprises
So
me.
I saw a meme that showed it said Fast and Furious 1, and it showed the two cars racing side by side.
It was
And
just street
just
racing.
two cars street racing, and then the next picture says Fast and Furious 9, and it shows the car like going into outer space with giant rockets on it and everything. And then it says
Yeah.
Fast and Furious 17, and it has a clip from Star Wars with the Millennium Falcon going after the TIE fighter. And I was like, yep, pretty much that's where we're headed.
Yeah, that's exactly where it's headed. I think at this point they're planning, is it 3 more movies? I
Three more?
think
I thought they were planning
3
10, and then
more.
that was it. I thought they
I'm
said
pretty sure
10
it's
and when they
12.
were done, and now they're going to 12.
No,
It's never
I'm
going to
pretty sure it's
stop.
12.
It's never going to
It's
stop.
it's just gonna go on and on
The
until
funny thing
they
is, I have no problem paying to see those movies. They're just so
yeah.
much fun. Like we said, they're just
Mhm.
popcorn popping action,
Yeah.
crazy
You don't have to
stupidness,
think much.
amazing
It's
stunts. Like, yeah,
yeah.
family. You know, that's it.
Yeah, it's
We're
that's always the
family.
word.
We're
It's always a
family. That's
theme.
always it. That's always the
Mhm.
theme. It's always
Never
about the
turn your back
family.
on family.
Never turn your back on family.
Yeah.
Why did he become a villain? Family.
Why? Mhm.
So
Always
yeah,
goes
it just
back to
works
that.
out. Oh man.
Yeah.
So Black Panther.
Black Panther.
Black
We are doing
Panther.
Black Panther today. Brace yourself. This is a movie
Brace
that was
yourself.
originally a movie that I was more against and you were more for, but you had said after your rewatch that it has gone down a little bit for you. Is that accurate?
I was surprised, okay? And I guess, you know, that's going to happen. I didn't want that
Yes.
to happen with these movies. I don't think I wanted it to happen this early in the season, but we're
Hmm.
eventually going to rewatch these and either, oh wow, that movie's actually better than I remember, or oh wow, that
Or
movie
the
was
other way.
not as good as I remember. So we knew it was going to happen. I was very shocked after watching that movie that I'm like, oh, wow, what did I just watch? Why was this not as good as I remember it being? Um,
Hmm.
so I don't know if it just
Yeah.
doesn't age well or if I was just so caught up in the hype back when it first came out. Because I saw it opening weekend. I think I saw it like Sunday
Okay.
night opening weekend, but still, and I was actually shocked when I went to see it because the theater was like empty. There was like me
Oh,
and the three people I was with, and then like maybe two other sets of people, and that was it on a Sunday night. I guess Sunday nights are kind of not really
yeah,
big
that's
theater
special.
nights, but you would think they would be, especially like opening weekend
Yeah.
for this
I mean,
film.
this movie grossed 200 million opening weekend, and from what I saw, I believe it's still the highest grossing non-Avengers MCU movie. It grossed 1.3 billion. So, yeah, maybe the theater
Yeah,
you were at just no no one bothered to go to that theater that day.
yeah, I don't know.
But yeah. Well, it was released February. I forgot it was released like in February. I thought this was a summer release, like pretty much any other MCU movie. But no, this was February 16, 2018. Got released. It was nominated for 7 Oscars, including Best Picture. It won
Which is actually
three.
surprising.
Yeah. Won three for
Yeah, and
Best
they were all
Music.
for like costume design and production design,
Yeah.
or
One
sound design
for
too, I think.
it won for original score for Ludwig
That's it.
Göransson, and
Original
then
score.
costume design and production design as well. And it was written by Ryan Coogler and Joe Robert Cole and directed by Ryan Coogler, who also did the Creed films, if you
Mm-hmm.
watched any of those. But
I did. Did you?
I did. I watched both of them.
Mm. They were great.
One of my coworkers, Andrew Horton, he's big into the Rocky movies and the Creed movies. So we had some movie nights where he caught up on all the Rocky movies and watched the Creed ones. And yeah, they're
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
solid films. So the brief synopsis, in case anyone is unaware, T'Challa, heir to the hidden but advanced kingdom of Wakanda, must step forward to lead his people into a new future and must confront a challenger from his country's past.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like this was a movie that really, for the first time, the MCU, I felt like it really presented something completely different, or mostly different, in the fact that presents a different culture. It's set in a different country, a different continent. It's everything about this feels on the outside very different from an MCU movie. Felt fresh and new. Even though from a storytelling perspective, which we'll get to later, it's really not that
Mm-hmm.
actually
It's pretty
refreshing.
Marvel standard for
Yeah,
their storytelling, especially for an origin film.
yeah. I thought Chadwick Boseman was terrific, especially considering, rest in peace. Considering he got diagnosed in 2016 with colon cancer, so this was in the middle of he was battling colon cancer during the
Yeah.
filming of this movie. So I thought he was a great casting. I thought he was terrific as Black Panther. He possessed the physical strength, the agility, the energy, brought energy to the role, but he also like kind of possessed this empathy, and he has a very like kind of soft spoken voice that he feels very human. It just
Mm-hmm.
felt very real with his character. I thought he conveyed a lot of subtle emotion with his performance, and so it was just really really solid. Because his whole character is trying to weigh this balance between protecting Wakanda. He's trying to protect Wakanda while also um, not like live under a shell at the same time. So that's something he kind of has this character has to balance throughout the entire movie. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, as far as the villain goes, again, I have problems with the villain, but what I did like is that they fleshed out his character, Killmonger. They gave him motivations for his actions, the way he thinks in the movie. They gave background as to what he was trying to do. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
allowed viewers to kind of see his side, and he really thinks he's doing the right thing, kind of in line with what Thanos was doing in Infinity War and Endgame. Like he thinks he's doing the right thing, even though we as viewers know it's not the right thing. I thought the
Yeah.
cinematography was. Oh, sorry. Go
I
ahead.
thought he was a really good I thought he was a really good, terrifying, ruthless character because he was so dedicated to his cause, and
Hmm.
he wasn't flamboyant. You know what I mean? He was just like
Yeah.
had this nice underacting thing, and he's sometimes relatable because you can see like the tragic arc that they have with his story of like losing his father when he was young, and um growing up and learning how to do what he did through the military, and it's
Yeah.
I just thought it was a good character, slightly underutilized, that I really wanted to see more of, and Michael B. Jordan just knocked the role out of the park and made it his own.
Hmm. Yeah. On like the technical side, I thought the cinematography was gorgeous. I
Hmm.
especially like scenes that took place in the ancestral plane, as they call it. I thought the lighting was beautiful there, and also the scene where the casino scene, the fight scene where they ambush
Hmm.
Claw. That lawn shot during that action sequence was fantastic.
Yeah.
I love lawn shots when I see them, especially during action scenes, because I know just how much choreography has to go into that to get it all in one
Hmm.
take.
Hmm.
So that was extremely impressive seeing that. I would have even loved seeing more of that kind of thing in the rest of the movie, but at least we got it in that casino fight scene. Um, and
Yeah, I also
you know,
like with the special effects. I liked Wakanda, as the big shots that they had of the city there.
yes,
It kind of gave me a feel of like the 1989 Batman with Gotham City, and how, okay, this is not a city that you can see anywhere on this planet.
hmm
You can't actually go and see this place. It's not like in Avengers where you can go to New York City and see everything in there except for the Avengers Tower. It's out of this world kind of thing, just like Gotham is in those
Yeah.
the '90s Batman, where it's just like larger than life. I also think they did a great job with giving us a believable mesh between what does exist in Africa and like the big technology that they had there. So it was like, okay, Wakanda is this nice. Okay, it still looks like it's Africa, but it's got all this big tech in there as well that's helping the city, um, the country, be more advanced. I like that part.
Right. Yeah, and I loved this, like the score for this movie overall by Ludwig Göransson, especially that scene you were just talking about where when they first enter Wakanda and they kind of showcase the
Hmm.
city itself. That whole theme, I love that theme for the movie. Like he brings in African themes and instruments to because it is like it's an African movie basically. It's shot and it's
Yeah.
set all around Africa, so he really brings you into the culture and makes you feel like this is something really really new and unique. And I really, even though it's like a very obviously modernized Africa for Wakanda, but it's it just
Hmm.
felt really immersive in that way. Um, but yeah, that's
Hmm.
kind of what I had for pros for the movie. Did you have anything else to add
The
there?
other thing I have that I thought was really good, yeah, what I thought was really good pro for this film was how they didn't shy away from current issues.
Hmm.
They jumped right into like the movie starts in 1992 with King T'Chaka confronting his brother for stealing weapons from Wakanda, and that's right. In 1992 was the L.A. riots,
Mm.
and that's where they're based. Where he's based in Oakland, so it's over in California. So they're dealing with the Rodney King stuff there. They're dealing with a lot of racial tension around those riots that were happening. Um, then they jump right into child kidnappings that are happening in Africa when he goes and oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her name now. Nakia, when he goes to get Nakia back, is that her
Nakia, yeah.
name? Yeah, Nakia. When he goes to get her back,
Nakia, yeah.
yeah. So he goes to get her, and it's like, okay, they're dealing with the child kidnappings, the Boko Haram stuff that has actually gone on, and I know they actually took some flack for putting that in the movie because people thought it put Africa in a negative light. But the reality is, hey, it's a real issue, stuff that people in Africa are dealing with, where their girls are being kidnapped and sold into whatever
Hmm.
kind of modern day slavery, and it's not,
Yeah.
and they didn't back off of that. They actually went for it. And another one, they deal with obviously like the themes of wealth inequality and extremism, and they're okay with Killmonger being basically a militant black power guy, and they're okay with saying, hey, it's not right, you know because he's the
Hmm.
villain of the movie.
Yeah.
They're trying to make it a relatable thing,
Hmm.
but also showing that, hey, this isn't the way to deal with this, even though they're showing it, oh, this is what this character is doing, and there's people supporting him. They're also kind of sending the message, hey, this isn't the right way to deal with these issues. So I thought the way they
Yeah.
dealt with a lot of the issues in this film, they didn't shy away from any of them. They kind of put them right in your face, and it was, in my opinion, relevant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And going along with that, like Killmonger is very revenge driven. I think that's also one of the themes of the movie is like being revenge driven kind of
Hmm.
tends to only to lead to your own self destruction in a way.
Yeah.
And so I love that they kind of showcase that with Killmonger's character. It's like they show that he from the very beginning, he was from his origins with his father dying and everything, and having that influence his actions really throughout the entire movie are all driven by that event. Because T'Challa's father was also killed in an explosion, but T'Challa, on the other hand, did not let that influence him and become as revenge driven like Killmonger was. So, but
Well,
yeah,
he was revenge driven, but that was all
well,
dealt with in Civil War.
yeah, Oh, your son's behind me.
T'Challa did become revenge driven, but that was dealt with in Civil War, like that
Sure.
whole side of things. And he's like, wait, no, this isn't right.
That's
Because they
right.
did the
Okay.
juxtaposition between T'Challa's character and Zemo's character in Civil War, whereas
Mm-hmm.
Zemo was motivated by revenge because of what happened to Sokovia. T'Challa was becoming
Yeah.
motivated by revenge because of what happened to his brother or his father. So then they were able to show, hey, this isn't the right way to do this. Hey, I got a guest here.
You do. Right
Hey,
behind you
buddy.
there. What special guest?
Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, love you. We're recording the show, though. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So can you go? Can you leave the room and I'll come play with you a little bit?
Okay.
All right. Thanks, bud. Did you have a
It's
question?
supposed to be part of the show. This wants to be part of the show. Can't really blame him, you know.
Yeah, he just wants to be on the screen. He does. He actually wants to do a show. He has
nice.
he wants to review movies with me, and basically he and I have talked about doing it. And what I'm thinking we'll do is he and I will watch like a movie that he's allowed to see, and then he's just gonna go on with the way he talks and stuff about and tell the whole story of the movie, basically. So
yeah,
I think it could be fun to have a 6-year-old
yeah
describe a movie because things come out
see
all
through
sort of weird.
their eyes.
Like he's talking about Lord of the Rings the other day, and he keeps saying, "Oh, Dobby, Dobby, Dobby," and it's like it's not Dobby, it's Gollum.
That's
but he keeps
right.
calling.
Yeah, that's different.
He keeps calling Gollum Dobby,
different franchise.
And I just think it's funny that he sees Dobby and Gollum as similar type characters because to me they're so different.
Mm-hmm.
But Dobby from Harry Potter and Gollum from Lord of the Rings to him, it's like, oh, they're the same person. I'm just like, okay, not really, but I get what you're seeing there.
Yeah. But yeah, you were mentioning Civil War. Yeah, it's been a little while since I had seen Civil War, but now I do remember that they dealt with that whole issue in Civil War. So yeah, you're absolutely right there. So yeah, now the cons. I'll let you go first on this one for this.
No, I'm pro.
No, you want me?
I'm all pro.
Oh, that's
you're
yes.
the con person. I'm the pro person. So you
person.
get to say the cons.
Yeah. So
and I'll tell you if they're valid cons.
Right. Thanks. I appreciate that. It really all stems from the very conventional MCU storytelling approach that this has, really in regard to its villain, Killmonger, because so many of the MCU villains, I know this has been said before, it's nothing really new, but so many of the MCU villains stem from they're wronged by either the protagonist or some relative of the protagonist, and that's always where the conflict comes through in the story. We had it in the first 3 Iron Man movies. We've had it in Thor. We had it even in Civil War, I believe, to a certain extent. And so we've seen this so many times, and it just becomes such a cliche. And Black Panther, and for a movie that's trying to be so different, follows the exact same storytelling approach and really disappoints in that regard for me. I was just like really?
Yeah, I can give you that because they also end up being like too perfect of a foil for the characters as well, or almost exactly like the character, at least for the first ones, because you have Iron Man, which has Iron Man and Warmonger was in that one, so it's a Iron Man costume versus a different Iron Man costume.
Yes.
You end up with that Thor versus Loki. Like Asgard god versus another Asgard god. So you end up with that in all the movies. Captain America, Super Soldier versus the original Super Soldier. Like you end up with this whole thing throughout every single one of their movies, especially when they're origin stories. So yeah, Killmonger versus Black Panther. It's like you literally have the two children of the king.
Yeah, it's two Black Panthers essentially.
Two Black Panthers fighting each other.
Yeah. And it just becomes, when you've done that so many times, it just becomes very boring to me and just
very obvious too.
Yes. Yeah. Like where this is going before things even start,
And there's ways they could have done it without it being so bad, but
yeah. And I also thought the movie had just really had a profoundly wasted opportunity in Andy Serkis. And yes, part of this stems from I'm such an huge Andy Serkis fan, but I thought he stole every scene that he was in this movie. I thought he was fantastic, and
He
they
was
kill
so
him
good.
off. They kill him off an
His
hour
death
into
was
the movie.
surprising. His
Yeah,
death was very surprising. I did feel like it came way too early because they could have
yeah,
used him for a villain in a
right.
later thing. Yes, he was already in Age of Ultron as a villain, but he
Hmm.
wasn't the villain of Age of Ultron. So, yeah, I feel like he was highly underutilized, and I just sometimes don't know what they're trying to do with the MCU because for something that's so planned out, so far ahead, they end up with way too many one dimensional villains who are just throwaway villains. They bring them on, they kill them off. And it's like, you're
Hmm.
trying to build a universe here. Keep these guys
Yeah,
around. They knew to do that with Loki.
yeah.
They did it with Red Skull, even though they never used him until
Mhm.
Infinity War, and he's not really a villain anymore. But keeping these guys around has a lot more potential for payoff than killing them off.
Yeah. I really think they did it for a shock factor, like, because not only did I think it happened too soon, also thought it really came out of nowhere. Like, they did this a lot. I think they primarily did this for the shock factor. Like, because they set up, even in the beginning of the movie, Andy Serkis, especially that scene where he robs the museum, where he point
Hmm.
blank shoots several people. I'm like, wow, this guy's for real, you know? And then
Yeah,
Killmonger just kills him very suddenly, just and it's all over in like a couple seconds. And I just feel like they did it pretty much for the shock factor to kind of set up Killmonger as okay, Killmonger is this big bad person now, and it just didn't work for me. I thought it was very out of place,
yeah,
and
yeah. I
yeah,
yeah, I have a whole section about how to fix this story, and I do cover that part in it, and we'll,
okay,
we'll cover that in
I'll
a
look
little bit
forward to
here.
that. Um, the only other little thing is kind of a nitpicky thing that I
Hmm.
have with movies is when say like a main character is battling another character that's they they don't kill them. They throw them off a cliff or they toss them aside somewhere. Like the scene where
Hmm.
Killmonger is battling Black Panther, and Killmonger
Yeah,
just tosses him over the waterfall. Like Black Panther's going to come back. He's not actually dead.
yeah,
Okay, they're not going to
yep,
kill off the character in the first MCU movie. That's not going to happen.
exactly,
It just
exactly.
bothers me to death when these big bad villains, they don't actually finish off their victims. They just wound them and then toss them over a waterfall or something and say that they're dead, even though we all know they're not dead. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of nitpicky, I know, but something that still bothers me. And this movie did that. But yeah.
Well, the other thing is, how did he possibly survive? I mean, I know this emphasize, oh, he's on an inch away from his life, but like
Hmm.
maybe if he had still had the stuff that made him Black Panther in him or something, you know what I mean? Like then maybe you could justify him being around, or if he still had the suit and something like that, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
they didn't give him any of that, so yeah, it was just like it was a very unbelievable. Like he's already been slashed open in the gut, been stabbed in the gut, and then thrown over
Hmm.
the cliff that is just it's a huge cliff, and he's supposed to have survived this
Yes.
enough for a fisherman to find him and bring him up to the king of to M'Baku.
Yeah. Yeah. In
Yeah,
the real
yeah,
world, it may work, but in the movie world, every time that happens, the character's not dead. That's where the problem really lies. Is yeah.
yeah. It's the fact that in the
Um.
movie world, the character's not dead, whereas in the real world, someone
Right.
survives that, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is surprising. Whereas when they found him alive, it
Hmm.
was not really surprising. It was just a
Yeah.
matter of okay, how is he gonna be alive? Yeah, I don't like fake out deaths either. I mean, I don't like fake out deaths.
No.
I also don't like resurrections because to me, death happens in the
Hmm.
real world. So
And
my
it's
thing is
permanent.
always, yeah, and it's permanent. My thing now, to me, death needs to matter in a film, but it can be done in a way that's like, oh no, it's senseless because that's the way things happen sometimes, you know? But in a way, by
Mhm.
making it a senseless death, you kind of make it also a poignant death and have a point to it, you know? Because death actually happens in the real world, it's permanent. So when it happens in a movie, basically don't kill your characters off if you're not willing to kill them off. You know, like if they're,
Mhm. Yeah.
don't kill them off just to bring them back seconds later. Don't fake us out just to bring them back it without like, yeah, I don't like resurrections and I don't like fake out deaths at all. I just feel like they're just very cheap
Yeah.
ways of doing things. Whereas I would much prefer to like, oh my gosh, that character's dead, you know they're dead. You know, like not, and I'm not a fan of killers either. You know, because
Mhm.
like The Walking Dead, that shows a killer where it's going
Yeah.
to kill off its main characters. No one is safe. Same thing with Game of Thrones
Right.
was a killer. No one was safe. Anybody could die at any moment. I don't like those either because to me it cheapens it to a point where, well, I don't care about any of these characters. Why should I care about any of these characters? They're all going to die eventually, and you know, it doesn't matter. Why should I bother being invested in a
Mhm.
character if, oh, we're just going to kill everyone off just for the fun of it? So I don't like the opposite effect
Right.
either. I just like it when death matters in the story. That's just me though.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. Um, Moving on to things like that I would change. This is something I'll actually bring up now that was in the I had in like the trivia section. Like the original villain for this movie, Ryan Coogler actually wanted Craven the Hunter as the main villain
Okay.
for the movie. I'm not really familiar with him, but
Craven the
apparently,
Hunter.
so
Want me to say who it
he's
is?
he's a right. Yeah, I'll let you say.
Sorry. He's typically a Spider-Man villain, but yeah, he's someone who likes to go into the wild and go after big game and fight it with his bare hands. So it would have been interesting. That would have been interesting. What more do you have to say about him?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that the reason why they couldn't was exactly why you said it was because it was a Spider-Man villain, and Sony and Columbia held the rights to Spider-Man, so and
Mm-hmm.
they refused to give permission to use him
Oh,
from the movie. Um,
that's too bad.
but Also, ironically, Sony had the rights to Black Panther before they sold him to Marvel in '05. So Sony also
Hmm,
originally held the rights to Black Panther. But anyway, yeah,
that's interesting.
I would have had a different villain. I or at the very least don't have let the antagonist have the same abilities or the same powers as the protagonist because that has become rather boring. We've seen that so many times
Yeah.
before. I probably would have made the main villain be Claw, um, or at least have a much larger role in the movie. We know he stole a ton of vibranium, like half. What do they say? They say he stole a quarter ton of vibranium in the movie. They say that, and so I'm like, I would like to
Yeah, which
see.
was supposedly all their vibranium. They claimed it was all their vibranium back in the 90s.
Yeah. So like I would like to have seen him either make some major weapon or I don't know, make a suit, something that would make him a really good adversary for Black Panther. Um, I know you have to give some proper motivations for this, and you kind of run the risk of uh, I don't know how to say this to be politically uh, sensitive, but you'd be kind of be pitting a white person against a black person. So I don't know if people would have a problem with that, how that would go over. But like as far as antagonist, protagonist type of thing,
You see, I honestly don't think anyone cares. Okay, I shouldn't say anybody because there's obviously always one
yeah,
butthead out there who cares about that stuff.
yeah,
But I would say the majority of people would not care about that as long as it was a well written story.
hmm
You know, like
yeah,
no one is going to care as long as you have great characters and a great story having an epic battle.
right,
But when people, I feel like when the biggest critiques come out is usually when there's some weakness to the story. And the reason
yeah,
people get so defensive about it, like in the cases of Star Wars, in the cases of Captain Marvel, those stories are actually kind of weak, and people get very defensive about them, pretty much because they are weak and they do deserve some criticism. Now, they definitely get more than their fair share of criticism because people just go in on things that don't matter as much, but they definitely deserve their fair share of criticism. Um,
Yeah.
so, yeah, people would probably jump on that just to jump on it even before the movie came out, when it's like, well, if it's done well, no one's going to care. No one's going to remember. No one had a
Yeah.
problem with Wonder Woman as a character because she was a great character. In the first Wonder Woman
Yeah.
movie, she struggled, she grew, she
Yes.
had um, motivation. She was a great character,
Mm-hmm.
and people enjoyed watching it. People did not enjoy Captain Marvel as much because of weakness of writing. She didn't have,
Mm-hmm.
the motivations were not made very clear. She never got stronger. She just always was powerful.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
they told us she had, the one key thing I remember in that is the guy was always like, control your emotions. Well, they never showed us her having a problem with emotions.
No, she never
She was
displayed much emotion throughout the entire
deadpan the
movie.
whole time. So they were telling us she had a problem with emotions rather than showing us that she had a problem. And they
Yeah.
were, and I can understand the idea that they're trying to get across there of, a woman being told, hey, smile, stuff like that. But it just wasn't done as well as it could have been done. And if they had made the character
Yeah.
struggle a little more, like Steve Rogers did in Captain America, taking this small guy and turn him into something stronger, then taking this pilot and made her into something more, then it would have been a better film all around.
Mm-hmm.
And then it doesn't help that
Yeah.
the actress antagonized people. But back to Black Panther.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but yeah, that's pretty much what I would improve. I would have a different villain, or at least a villain that doesn't have the same kind of powers, and basically not having two Black Panthers battle each
See,
other.
I
I
was
would I
okay
would
with
do it
the
differently.
the I was okay with it, but I felt like they needed to do a better job juxtaposing the characters. So there's
Mm,
5 things that I would change in the movie.
yeah.
So starting with the very beginning, at the very beginning of the film, instead of cutting off before King T'Chaka kills his brother, I would have shown that right away. You know,
Okay.
because they kind of cut
Yeah.
away before that happens, so that they have this reveal
Right.
that's a little bit. It just feels like it's not needed later on. They could have shown it from the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're like, wait, what? King T'Chaka did that? Where this is shocking, And I think from there, what they could have done was a little bit of what they did in Thor, where they kind of juxtaposed the childhoods of Loki and Thor. They could have shown the childhoods of T'Challa being raised to be king and Killmonger being raised on the street, having to struggle, because he has a
Mm-hmm.
similar issue to Captain Marvel. Killmonger does, where they tell us about his struggle. They tell us about the problems
Without
that he
showing.
had growing up instead of showing us his problems growing up. He
Yeah.
basically just goes from being a kid on the street to being a guy standing in a museum. You don't see his
Mm-hmm.
struggle. So I feel like they could have made a more sympathetic character that way. And then
Yeah.
what I would have done is I would have, because we go through couple things in this movie that we see like 2 or 3 times. We see the challenge of Black Panther, where they're challenging him for his position as king. We see that twice in this movie. Okay, I kind of get the idea, but
Yeah.
really 2 battles to the death. I don't know. That just seems a little bit much. And
Yeah.
then they also had 3 visions of their fathers.
Mm,
2 for Black Panther, 1 for um, Killmonger. I just feel like, okay, we're repeating a lot of things in this film unnecessarily. So I would have cut out the first
Yeah.
fight scene and have him come back to town, come back to Wakanda and be like, hey, we're getting preparations for, you becoming king. Okay. And it's going to take weeks for us to prepare, but hey, we're glad you're here to prepare it. We're glad everyone's here. We're starting to get ready for it. Oh, now they get the thing about Claw, and they get the information about Claw there. So before he becomes officially king, he goes out on that mission where they do the casino stuff. They capture Claw. Um, but here's what I don't get. They just went through such a crazy fight scene, crazy chase scene to get Claw. It seemed to me like they
Mm-hmm.
didn't, like, oh, Martin Freeman got shot, so Bilbo got shot, so we're gonna not
We're gonna
chase
take care
after
of
Claw.
him.
Yeah, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I get the idea of what they were trying to do with him, because what that allowed them was having the outsider come in so that they could explain stuff a little bit more about how Wakanda works. So I get that, but I think what
Right.
would have been a better option would have been chase down Claw, chase down Killmonger. They capture both of them, but then they find out who Killmonger is, and instead of imprisoning him, he becomes the one who we see. This is how Wakanda works through his eyes. So now, instead of trying to instantly make him this bad guy, they kind of go, oh no, he's Wakandan. We need to bring him in. He's one of us. We never should have made that mistake. So they reach out to him. They try and rehabilitate him essentially. And they show him around. They show him the ropes. And this is all done through getting prepared for T'Challa to be king. And then when they have the challenge, he challenges him, and it's completely unexpected. I mean, it's expected, but also unexpected, because you think that he's like becoming this character who they're like growing with. Um, and
Yeah.
then they can also show, because this is another thing they did where they told but didn't show, was oh, what's his friend's name? The guy from Get Out. The guard.
I forget the actor's name. I know who you're talking about.
I'm thinking about the character,
Man,
but
I have to look
they
him
show
up.
him, his parents died by Claw. When the Claw attacked in
Yeah.
1992, his parents were killed, and now he's like the leader of the border tribe, and he says, "Oh, well, your father did nothing for years. I expected better out of you." Actually, show this happening, okay? Let's have T'Challa
Mm-hmm.
bring Claw back, and then he says, "Hey, um, they bring him Claw before the council, and instead of executing him, they decide to put him in prison because they're trying to figure out more information about where Claw has sent vibranium before. Like who are his contacts? Who what else do they know? So they show
Yeah.
T'Challa kind of being slightly weak there, instead of explaining to us that this is happening. You know, so I just think they have
Yeah.
opportunities there. So you end up with just
Yeah.
them showing T'Challa not doing his
It was
thing.
Wakabi.
Wakabi, that's it, Wakabi. So they show
Yeah.
T'Challa being a weak leader in Wakabi's eyes. So Wakabi ends up butting up to Killmonger a little bit there and building that relationship a little more. Because Wakabi, to me, betrayed his friend T'Challa so quickly. The second,
He did. He did.
it was too fast, and it just made a very weak character, in my opinion, especially for someone who's married to the king's guard. Like the king's
Mm-hmm.
general. Like he's like, seriously, you're gonna be that pig-headed about
Yeah.
this? No, show us why he's that way. Show us a little more. So then you have the challenge.
Yeah.
Obviously, Killmonger wins. Obviously, maybe throw him over the edge, but maybe show that he didn't die right away instead of doing the fake out death thing.
Yeah.
Show that he lands in the water,
Right.
show that a
Show him at least
fisherman pulls him
landing.
out, show him clinging on for life or something, or he had some gadget from his sister that helped him survive. something like that, um,
Yeah.
and then they each take it, they each have their different visions, and the final battle just kind of goes the way it does in the movie. But what you change there is I would keep Killmonger alive, because I just feel
Hmm.
like it makes much more sense to keep the villains alive, especially when you're building a universe. You're building this
Yeah.
MCU. It makes much more sense to keep the characters alive and have them be able to reoccur, fight over and over again, or bring a good another character to bounce off of later on. They do it with Zemo in Falcon and Winter Soldier. They bring the character back in, and you get to see him slightly different from a slightly different view.
Yeah.
Isaac, can you
We have
please
a
leave?
special guest again.
Yeah, I guess. I'll be right with you, son. We're
Yeah.
almost
Now that
done.
all that yeah, that all makes sense. I mean, that's some excellent points. Yeah, I think there are multiple characters in here that they shift their motivations very, very quickly, and it's just not how real life works. You don't just all of a sudden change your mind about something. You know,
Yeah,
you
I mean,
actually have
especially when
you
it's
need.
someone who you're so close to. Oh, you're supposedly this best friend of the king who he comes and visits you to talk to about stuff. And, oh, we didn't capture the guy. Oh, well, this other guy killed him. I'm going to join his side now. It makes,
Yeah.
to me, it just made for weird, weak characters. And I would much prefer them all to be strong characters.
Oh yeah.
Have him be won over to Killmonger's side. When Killmonger starts
Hmm.
becomes king by ritual combat, have him be like, this guy makes sense. Oh, he's gonna have him like execute Claw or something to win over the people. Oh, T'Challa wouldn't do
Yeah.
this. I did. That type of thing. So there's just so many better ways that they could have done the character and still had him be, I don't know. I mean, plus now we're stuck with this thing where Chadman, Chadwick Boseman passed away, and people are talking about
Yeah.
bringing
Now.
that they're going to bring Killmonger back to basically become a good king, and I just think that would be a terrible
No.
move for the story,
No.
because they
Yeah.
already killed him off. They already made him a dastardly
They can't.
villain, kind of irredeemable. You
Yeah.
can't just bring him back and be like, oh well, we used the Wakanda, the vibranium
Technology.
ex
Yes.
machina.
It's definitely be able to. Yep.
It just doesn't work. And I would like for them to
No.
have, if they had kept the villain alive, then sure, bring him back. But please, 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 for Black Panther
Let
2, go with
people
Shuri.
stay dead.
Please, please go with the
Hmm.
sister. You know,
Hmm.
don't do this thing where you change everything around. But that's just my
Yeah.
2 cents.
No, that makes sense to me. Well, I just have a few little trivia things, and then
All
we'll
right.
be wrapping up this episode.
Yeah.
As far as timeline goes for this movie, it takes place about a week after Civil War. So I know
Hmm.
leading up to Endgame, I went through all the MCU films in chronological order, which is a lot of fun. Definitely recommend it if you ever have time. I did it just for the sake of something nice. Like I never did this before. Endgame's coming out. This is the culmination of all the MCU films, so I did it. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, this movie takes place a week after Civil War. Um, Michael B. Jordan, who plays Killmonger, originally auditioned for the Falcon, Sam Wilson slash the Falcon, back in 2013, before being cast in here. So that's pretty interesting. Uh, I already mentioned about Craven the Hunter. But then just the last thing I had was the fighting in the movie is based on African martial arts, and the filmmakers also cited Creed, who Ryan Coogler directed, and the Kingsman films as an influence on the fighting
Hmm.
styles for the movie. So yeah, that is Black Panther. Wow, I think we covered a lot of material in this episode. going into it, I wasn't sure how much we'd be able to cover. We covered a lot, so
yeah. I like what we did. It's like I said, it's got its weaknesses as a film. It definitely lost some of its luster over the years, but I still think it was good for what they were trying to do. I do think it could have been done better, but I like it.
Yeah, I still don't consider it best picture worthy, but overall, like, it's definitely not a bad film. It's not even really I wouldn't even say like a mediocre film. It's just not a great film. It kind of falls somewhere along those lines. Definitely a lot of ways that could have been improved. I just think sometimes it gets to become a little overrated is what I'm getting at. But still,
I think Killmonger had potential to be as good as Loki or Thanos, but they kind of squandered it, and now he's just like he's definitely better than the average MCU one-off villain, but he's not top of the pack. He's kind of middle of the top. Like top of the middle. I mean, so
Yep. Well, that's Black Panther. We want to thank you all for listening to us for this episode. Next week, I'm trying to pull out my schedule. What are we doing? We are doing
Sound of Music.
Sound of Music. That's right. Our first ever
the
musical.
Hills will be alive.
The Sound of
Music.
That's
a long one too, isn't it?
It is.
How long is that movie?
Borderline 3 hours, I believe. So, yeah, it's almost 3 hours.
Okay, I guess that's not too bad.
It's
that's not too bad.
There's longer movies out there
nowadays. I just did the whole Lord of the Rings series last week, so
okay. 2 hours 52 minutes. It's less than
not
3
extended.
hours. So
okay, 2 hours 52 minutes. It's long for a musical.
Yes, but well, I feel like some musicals tend to be pretty long, but I guess more in the 2.5
actually back in the day. Now that I think about it,
like My Fair Lady, I want to say
musical.
No.
Okay. Gone with the Wind's like 4 hours.
Trying to think, like My Fair Lady, for instance, was 2 hours 50 minutes. So back in the day, these musicals ran close to 3 hours. But so we look forward to doing that one next week. I want to thank you everyone who tuned in to us this week. And
thanks for being here, and see you next week.
Stay cool.
And remember to stay cool.